Pensions are ridiculous. Well, pensions aren't ridiculous, but our pension system is ridiculous. And as it stands, it puts far more people off saving than it encourages. It doesn't have to be like that, but it is, and really it has been pretty much ever since I've been in the business, which is an awfully long time now. Why is it like that? Well, let's go back a few years, 20 years in fact, to one of the things that prompted me to talk to you about this. And that was when something snappily titled A-Day happened. If you're old enough to remember Gordon Brown as Chancellor of the Exchequer, he decided, yes, that pensions were ridiculous. So he would sweep away years and years of regulation, simplify everything, have one set of rules that everyone could understand, and we could then move forward. You could have 25% tax-free cash, the amounts you could pay in, the amounts you could take out at the other end would be standardised. Should make life a lot simpler, not just for advisors, but for clients. Yes, you guys trying to actually understand what pensions are all about. The problem was that an awful lot of people already had pensions, which had different rules, because pretty much every Chancellor for the last 30, 40 or more years had changed pension legislation in one way or another to either make their mark on the system or make it more generous, or yes, indeed, to simplify it. And that involved people who had pensions with much more generous lump sums, because there were some from which you could get far more than 25%, a quarter of your pot as tax-free cash. Were they going to lose out? No, they could still have what they had before, but it would change going forward. People who were able to put more into their pensions than the set amounts that were going to be levelled. Well, if they already had those pensions, of course, they could carry on doing that and get the benefits accordingly. You get the picture. So pensions were simplified, but actually made a lot more complex, because some people would have new pensions and old pensions, which came under other rules, which would have to be ring-fenced, kept until they reach retirement age, at which stage everything will get more complicated again. Go back 5 years before, and Gordon Brown himself introduced something called the stakeholder pension. The idea of that was to cap the charges so that greedy financial advisors couldn't get loads of commission for selling them to you. That supposedly would encourage lots of people to take out pensions whom it was thought had been put off because the charges were too high. A few years on, that was found to have, well, not spectacularly failed, but it failed because no more people, probably less actually, were putting money into pensions again, in my view, because they got too blooming complicated. What's happened since pension simplification? Guess what? It's got more complicated. What's happened? Well, we've had probably another 9, and I think another 9 chancellors, 12 pensions ministers, who've all wanted to put their own mark on things. Labour were out, Conservatives were in for donkey's years, as we know, and they introduced pension freedoms. Actually, a good idea, which meant you could take your money out of your pension pretty much as you wanted. They became free of inheritance tax, so you could pass them on to the next generation. All good stuff. The other major thing that happened was a remake of auto-enrolment, something called, a remake of pensions, stakeholder pensions, something called auto-enrolment. And that meant all employers had to offer a pension scheme to their employees, had to put money into it, had to match what the employees had to put into it. A good thing, because pension saving became sort of compulsory, although you could opt out of it, which I'm afraid lots of people still do because they don't understand, because pensions are still too complicated. What do we do about this? Well, I guess we try and advise and educate people. we try and rail against those who at every budget make things more complicated, as Rachel has done, getting rid of the inheritance tax freedoms that pensions enjoyed, changing rules on salary sacrifice, another complicated bit of the legislation which has now become more complicated still. What I try to do when I'm talking to clients is to really go back to basics myself. What is a pension? For most people, a pension is a pot of money which they are building up to use to provide an income or sustain them in retirement. Now, they give you certain tax breaks on the way in to encourage you to put money in. So effectively it comes out of your income before it's taxed, or if you're paying it out of your own income, you can claim the tax back. At the other end, whatever you built up in the pot, 25% of that you can take out tax-free on the drip basis all at once, depends on your circumstances. The money in the pension grows pretty much tax-free as well, as it would in an ISA. Another subject, sorry, don't want to divert you. The payoff for all those tax breaks is you can't get your hands on the money until you're old. Something which of course puts off a lot of younger people who don't really understand the benefits of the thing from putting money in the first place. Old being at the moment 55, that's going up to 57. Cynical younger people think it will be 70 or 80 by the time they get there. Again, that's something that puts them off, but it will be without doubt at least 60 within a few years. That's really all there is to it, and it's one of the ways of building money up for the future. Nobody, as I always say, retires thinking they've got too much money in their pensions, and if we're talking to clients about saving, we usually advise them, if they got the money, make pensions the long-term bit, have some in the middle which may go into ISAs and stocks and shares, have some short-term savings, which is money you can get your hands on to spend in emergency or go on holiday or whatever. That's how simple it should be. When people come to us, they may, by the time they're 50-something or even 40-something and thinking, gosh, 60's not too far away, have half a dozen of these blooming pensions, all doing different things. And if they're 50 or 60 now, a number of those might be under the old rules where they're trying to figure out, should I leave it there, should I take it, what should I do with it? Great for financial advisors because it means there are complications for us to sort out for people, for which we can charge you money, of course. Not great for you if you're trying to work out what you should or shouldn't be doing. You may well think, why bother? Which, alas, is what a lot of people do. So, for the legislators, if you're going to keep it simple, keep it simple. For you as a client, it's more complicated in your head, perhaps, than it should be, and that's not your fault. For us as advisors, well, we need to keep telling people that pensions are just a savings vehicle with some tax breaks. It should be that simple. It's worth doing. Get advice.